Story time on how my boyfriend got my mom pregnant. Okay, so boom, let's jump right into it. My disgusting boyfriend and backstabbing mom were unusually close. They would talk and text on the phone all the time. But of course, I didn't think my mother would hook up with my boyfriend. To make a long story short, when my boyfriend would come over and hang out, there's times where I would go to ballet class. And my boyfriend and mom would be home alone. I would be in ballet class and my dad would be at work. And I bet you think I found out. Nope. My mom was pregnant and I was thinking my dad was obviously the father. And of course, at first, my dad thought so too. Oh, but no. Once my sister came, my dad was suspicious of my mom, so he did a paternity test. The results came back and guess what? It wasn't his. Oh, but it gets worse. My dad walked in on my boyfriend and my mom. Like for part 2. Part 2 on how my boyfriend got my mom pregnant. Okay, so boom, like I said, my dad didn't think my new sister was his, so he took a paternity test. He was right, it was not his. But what takes the cake, even though my mom wasn't supposed to be doing the do, when my dad pulled up with the paternity test early, he walked in and seen my boyfriend and my mom in bed. My dad was more so disgusted than even shocked. My dad told me, I was shocked, I cried, but then me and my dad moved out together and now I have a new amazing stepmom. I don't talk to my sister and my boyfriend eventually left my mom, so now she just looks stupid and alone. And my boyfriend is a bum, so he has literally nothing going on for himself. My dad and I don't talk to my mom, but I kind of feel bad for my sister. It's not her fault, but I don't want a relationship with her. Am I wrong?
Storytime about how a stranger wandered into my house and it led to something amazing. I woke up one night to someone ringing my doorbell over and over vigorously. I looked at the clock and I saw it was 3 in the morning. I went to the door and looked out of the peephole and saw a young woman outside on my porch. I opened the door and could immediately tell that she was intoxicated. She started explaining to me that she was at a bar down the street and lost her phone. That's when she asked if she could use mine and call someone for a ride home. It was freezing outside, so I reluctantly let her in. She asked me for water, so I led her to the kitchen. She proceeded to open my fridge and start eating my lunch meat and various other snacks. She then kicked off her heels and sat down at the table with a jar of pickles and started talking to me like she's known me for years. She told me her name was Krista and asked me how work was and what I was up to tomorrow. I reminded her that she needs to call someone to come pick her up and handed her my cell phone. She took the phone and FaceTimed her brother. She told him that she needs a ride but she has no idea where she's at and handed me the phone to talk to him. I told him the situation and gave him my address to come pick her up ASAP. A few seconds later, my doorbell began ringing again and someone started banging on my door. I went to the door and opened it to find a guy outside and he looked furious. This is when things got intense. Part 2 of how a stranger wandered into my house and it led to something amazing. I opened the door and quickly found out that this guy was Chris's boyfriend and it became clear that they were in some sort of fight. Krista started telling him to leave and accused him of following her and kept screaming at him that it's over between them. The guy turned his attention to me and asked what guy Krista was here to sleep with and began accusing her of coming here to cheat. He started yelling at me for helping her. All of a sudden, he grabbed Krista by her hair and started dragging her out of the house. I quickly ran after them and started screaming at the top of my lungs for him to let her go. Luckily, one of my neighbors heard the commotion and came to our aid. The guy let Krista go, but now he was trying to fistfight my neighbor. A few seconds later, a truck pulled up to my house and a man jumped out, which turned out to be Krista's brother. I quickly explained the situation and helped Krista into his truck. Krista's brother proceeded to confront her boyfriend, who was still making a scene, knocked him out clean with one hit, and drove off, leaving her boyfriend knocked out cold on my front lawn. Her brother texted me the next day thanking me and apologizing for knocking that guy out in my yard. We started texting back and forth and getting along, and I actually asked him out a couple days later. We've been dating for a few months now thanks to his drunk sister stumbling onto my porch. I guess everything happens for a reason.
Here we go with another toxic best friends story time. So a little background information. So a couple of years ago, I became best friends with this one girl who we're going to call Sammy. Every year her family would go on a camping trip and every year I couldn't go. Something would always come up even if it was last minute. Well, this year finally nothing was standing in the way so I could go on this freaking camping trip, and we had literally been planning this for like 6 months. So this plan was we would go up there in the afternoon after I was done with work and after she was done with school. Well, then she calls me and she asks me if I can call off work and go up a day early with her. And I told her, no, I can't do that. I already took off a bunch of time because I was sick and for my sister's wedding. So I need the money. So after I tell her I can't go up on Thursday, I would rather go on Friday like we said, she responds with, well, we're going on Thursday and either you can take the day off and join or not. And then I told her I'm not driving when the whole plan was for you to drive, like for part 2 about my extremely toxic best friend. So like I said, she tried to talk me into taking off work so that way we could go up on Thursday, but I told her no, I would rather stick with the plan and go up Friday. And then she says, well, you can do that, but we're all going up on Thursday, so you're gonna have to find your own ride. And then I told her, I'm not driving up there. I don't know this place. So at that point, I was like, fuck it. If they leave without me, they live without me. I do not care at this point. And I pretty much said that. If you want to go without me, then go without me. And she called me and she was like, you're being extremely rude. A little little background information on Sammy. She was a super selfish, self-centered person, and she has like only child syndrome. Every time we hung out, we had to do what she wanted to do. I was super annoyed about this because I had already planned for this vacation, meaning I took the time off work, I rearranged my whole schedule, and now I don't really know if I want to be friends with her. What do you guys think?
Am I the asshole for leaving my boyfriend in Arizona after he pretended to push me over the edge of the Grand Canyon? I'm 150% scared of heights. I didn't want to go in the first place, but I figured it was worth facing my fears. I've had at least 5 separate in-depth conversations with my boyfriend about how scared I was, especially about having a panic attack. He assured me that he'd help calm me down if I got overwhelmed or scared. One day, one of the tour, he decided it'd be funny to grab me and pretend to try and push me over the edge. I freaked out and unsurprisingly had a panic attack all in front of our group. I was sobbing and yelling that he was cruel for doing this. He knew I was terrified and I said he was evil for using that against me. He yelled that it was a joke and to get over it because it was embarrassing both of us. I said he was a terrible person and his ex was right to leave him. He yelled that that was effed up to say. Tour guide separated us and I have no idea what he did after that. He wasn't back at the hotel, so I got a flight to my parents' state and I've been staying here. We live and work together, so if this is over, my life is going to be very messy. We have a ton of mutual friends and half of them are texting and calling me to say I'm overreacting and being a psycho bitch. Am I the asshole for going off on my soon-to-be husband for returning my wedding dress? Me and my husband are getting married soon, and wedding planning so far has been alright, except for a few things he and I argued about. Nothing major, just venue and flower girl. Now we've been arguing about my wedding dress. This might sound cliche, but ever since I was young, I dreamed of having my own beautiful wedding dress. Now I can't afford it, but my fiance thinks it's not okay to waste a couple of thousands on a dress I'm only gonna wear once. He may have a point there, but that's the typical price for wedding dresses, and it's a once-in-a-lifetime thing. Why not make sure it's special? Am I the asshole for going off on my soon-to-be husband for returning my wedding dress? He wants me to rent a dress instead and said I'm irresponsible with money. He said I've already put aside money to rent a face and get fake hair. I just have a vision of how I want to look, and I think that's my right. Anyways, I bought the dress and he told me he returned it. I went off on him, which I've never done before, and said he had no right. He said I must expect him to pay for everything while I keep my money, but I've never told him how to spend his. He said I should grow the F up and stop with the dream wedding cliche. His mom called and chewed me out, saying she won't let me ruin his financial stability with how I spend money. And also said I need to find a cheaper dress.
This is why you should always keep your head on a swivel. In 2017, an elderly woman who lived alone thought she saw something moving in her backyard and went to the window to have a look. As she's looking around, a shadowy figure emerges right on the other side of the glass, standing in her backyard. Terrified, she keeps an eye on the figure while calling police, but by the time she hangs up, the figure's gone. When the police arrive, her front door is unlocked, so they go inside and they find her still sitting in front of the window looking for this figure. The police search the backyard, but they don't find anything. When the police go back inside to search the house, they quickly find some large footprints that couldn't have been hers in the room that she was sitting in and all around the first floor. That's when they realized what was going on. She wasn't seeing a shadowy figure in her backyard. She was seeing the reflection of someone in the room with her.
Okay, so this is almost a fair comment. Let's break down exactly what you're paying for when you book me as a face painter. First, you're paying for my paint, which is not only the highest quality you can get, it's also super easy to remove. You're paying for the time that we both spent planning the event, the time I spent prepping for the event, and traveling to and from the event. Because remember, I don't charge extra for travel. You're paying for my decade of experience, and you're paying for my talent. I don't need to be modest about that. I know exactly what I bring to the table. And I know that I give kids the best experience that I can. You're paying for my liability insurance and the peace of mind knowing that I follow all FDA regulations regarding my supplies. And finally, and in my eyes the most important, you're paying for the time that I'm spending with your child instead of my own. It's interesting that you posted this comment to me today because recently I've been struggling with a decision. When I started my company 11 years ago, I knew that no matter what, I wanted my prices to be fair. I didn't want to just cater to the wealthy Connecticut elite. I really wanted everyone to be able to afford great quality face painting. When I started, I charged $100 an hour. Most of the other painters were charging $125, but I thought $100 was fair since I was new. About a year later, I bumped it to $125, and that's where it's remained. Right now, it truly feels like there's about 5 working professional face painters in Connecticut. From what I can tell, many just didn't come back to it once parties started up again. So now, the few of us that are working are completely overrun with requests because parents justifiably want to make up the last couple of years to their kids. They haven't been able to have parties, so now they want to go all out. There's 3 local painters that I adore and work with constantly. Well, they told me the other day that they decided to raise their hourly to $150. And that kind of put me in a weird spot. I haven't touched my prices in so long, and I honestly didn't have any intentions of raising them anytime soon. They did, however, also bring up good points. Between the high demand for painters right now and the rising cost of gas, I don't charge a travel fee, by the way. As long as it's within Connecticut, I don't charge anything extra. I also don't want to undercut my fellow painters. I'm a really big believer in charging whatever the going rate is for your area. And it seems that right now, it's $150 an hour. So I did it. I updated my website this morning, and honestly, I am truly struggling with it. I did break down the math, and that actually helped a bit. I can easily paint 20 kids in an hour, and that averages out to about $750 per kid, which is low. So I'm going to try and keep reminding myself of that low number until I feel better about the $150 as a whole. What do you guys think?
Get ready with me for a job interview. I have not had a job interview in ages. I'm not nervous or anything, but it's like you say that and then you get in there and ask your name and you're like, what? Did I mention it's at Ulta Beauty? So of course we got to beat the face, but nothing too crazy. Going in with this Kosas foundation because I could not get enough of this. So I go to TikTok for absolutely everything. And like, of course I looked up job interview stuff, and there was this lady and she was a manager at Ulta, and she said to wear all black so you can look like the part. So I'm wearing all black today. I want absolutely everything about my look today to scream, hire me. Setting my under eye with this Laura Mercier setting powder and my powder puff because we need airbrush today. We need airbrush every day, but specifically today. My interview is at 1 p.m. and it's currently 11 a.m. so I'm pretty good on time. Black eyeliner and lower lash mascara combo is undefeated. For lip combo, I used Persona Beauty lip liner in 90210. And I actually mixed these two NYX butter glosses in butterscotch and creme brulee, and it made this gorgeous color. Now let's set the face. And if you're not drenched, you didn't do it right. Okay guys, I finished off the look. This is our interview look, and I'm gonna go ahead and head out the door. Wish me luck. Storytime on how I got fired from Ulta. I know y'all are like, girl, you just had the interview. What happened? And then I mentioned it was before my first day. So as most of you know, about a month ago, I went in for the interview. And the interview went well. Like, we hit it off and everything. And she was showing me the break room, the back room, where they keep their food, their lockers. I'm like, y'all show that to all your interview candidates? So I'm thinking like, okay, I'm in there. A couple days later, I did receive a call saying that I received the job, but the hiring manager was out of town, so I had to wait till she got back. So fast forward to like last week, I'm in the mall, you know, doing mall things, shopping. You know, shopping make you hungry. So at the end of my mall trip, I decided to go get me something from the food court. So I finished ordering and I reached down for my lanyard so I could pay for my food, and it's not there. Now connected to my lanyard is like, it's the thing that goes around your neck and it has a wallet connected to it, and my keys were on it too. My ID, my cards, my entire life was on that lanyard. So I literally go throughout the entire mall searching frantically for my lanyard. I go through every store I was in. I went to security. I tried to check the cameras. I tried to do everything to find that lanyard. Like, on top of that, I was just mad at myself because it was like, I know things happen, but at your big age, you losing your keys in the mall of all places. In the midst of me frantically looking for my keys, my phone rings, and lo and behold, guess who it is? It's Ulta. I mean, their timing couldn't have been any more terrible. And they're basically saying like, hey, they wanted me to come in and put my information into the system. I had to bring 2 forms of ID. My ID was probably sitting in somebody's pocket by now. So I was explaining the situation to them, basically saying I didn't have 2 forms of ID and I also didn't have my car keys in order to get there to put my name in the system. It's like, oh, you can just bring your passport and I'm like, you're not understanding. How am I gonna get there? On top of my passport being expired and I don't even know where it's at. So all I was asking for was a day, maybe 2, just to replace the items that I misplaced. We ended the phone call with some okay. So I'm thinking like, it's okay. Like, Yeah, I get an email not even 5 minutes after we hung up the phone saying, we've decided to go with other candidates. What? I mean, I called, sent emails after that, because I'm like, are you kidding me right now? When I tell you they ignored me, I was like, okay. I was very disappointed because it was just like a terrible chain of events. But anywho, I like to think that that means God's plans for me are far greater than Ulta Beauty, and that is okay with me.
Am I the asshole for threatening to throw my pregnant daughter out? I'm a female 51 and my daughter is 22 and I love her dearly. We're close, always have been, but she still lives with me and it's draining me emotionally and financially. She had a job as a teenager. We decided to put most of her earned money into a savings account. She got full access of it when she turned 18. It was probably around $10,000 to $15,000. She went on a trip with her friends, got her license, and bought a car. It was gone in the span of 6 months. I was disappointed. Me and her grandparents saved money for her that she'll gain access to when she turns 25. I don't think she has knowledge of this though. She likely will never truly struggle because of financial issues if she follows the right path. She's been out of work and school since she graduated high school. In November 2021, she told me she was pregnant. Baby is due in June. Father is out of the picture. She's keeping it, much to my dislike, but I understand not being able to go through with the termination. She's here today because I didn't. When she let me in on her pregnancy, I told her that while I do love her, I don't want to be living in the same house as her and a baby. I'll support her, but I need her out of my house. It's not even the first time I've told her I want her to move. Am I the asshole for threatening to throw my pregnant daughter out? I said I'll house her for maybe another year, but she needs to actively apply for jobs and apartments and decide if she wants to go to university or not. I'll help her. I have contacts. Well, now it's the end of May. Has she done any of those things? No. I was a single mother, so I know the struggle. I didn't have my family though. I wasn't fit to be a mother, but I tried my best. If I could choose, I'd never have kids. But I tried my best and I know she'll do the same. I told her she has 4 months and then she's out. I'll help her pay rent. I'll come by multiple times a week. She doesn't want to work. She doesn't want to do anything. She wrote a post about how I am the most unloving mother in history because I don't want her in my house anymore, asking if any family or friends can take her in. As I said, she won't be homeless, just not in my home. I won't disappear either. I just want space, and my partner proposed to me and wants to move in. I've offered to get her an apartment. I've offered anything she wants. I pay for her therapy, but nothing is enough. Now my inbox is flooded with relatives calling me an asshole, and I just need my daughter to take some responsibility. Am I the asshole for threatening to throw her out? Am I the asshole for rejecting my cousin's bridesmaid's proposal? I, 17 female, and my cousin 26 female were never very close, mainly due to the age difference, but also just because I felt like she was very jealous of me during childhood because she was married into the family with her mom and my uncle, while I was the only biological niece, nephew, and grandchild. I always tried to get along with her and made sure to never treat her as if she wasn't my family, but it just didn't work out. She recently got engaged and began planning her wedding. She asked to meet up a few weeks ago and she asked me to be her bridesmaid. I said yes at first and thought this was her way of telling me that she was ready to get closer to me, but unfortunately, after discussing her criteria for the bridesmaids, I had to decline. I had 3 main reasons, of which was 1, she wanted me to spend over $7,000 on dresses and jewelry for just the ceremony, and another $1,000 for the reception. 2, she asked if she could borrow our grandmother's necklace that she left for me before she passed. It's worth just a little under $1,000 and is very important to me. Am I the asshole for rejecting my cousin's bridesmaid's proposal? This request was not that bad, but my cousin is notorious for losing priceless items that could never be recovered. And 3, she wanted me to cover my hair during the ceremony because she thought that my hair had always looked so much healthier. I was okay with that, not a big deal, but she added on that I could pretend to be a hijabi so that people wouldn't ask why my hair was covered. And correct me if I'm wrong, but that's disrespecting a religion and culture. She got mad at me and said that she even cut down the cost from $11,000 to just $8,000. I told her I was sorry and left. When I got home, I was met with my aunt, her mother, who began yelling at me, saying that my cousin had called her crying because I was her last resort as a bridesmaid because the only 2 friends she had rejected due to some of the same reasons as I. So am I the asshole for rejecting her proposal?
I'm going to be telling you a true scary story about the children who lived in my woods called the Lost Boys. As a kid, I would always play in the woods behind my house. And as a kid, I loved playing in them because I had a whole bunch of friends who lived in the woods. And you might be thinking, kids don't live in the woods. And that's exactly right, because they were actual ghosts. But as a kid, I did not know that. I would go out every single day and there was about 10 boys who would play with me. We would build tree forts, we would play hide and seek, chase, everything. I invited them over for dinner all the time, but they told me that they couldn't leave, that they were stuck in the woods. I didn't understand, but I just let them be. I would always bring my friends out there and none of them could see them. Everyone just told me I was crazy. But that was until I went missing for 2 days because one of the boys told me to come with him. So I did. He took me really, really far back into the woods and I was super lost. And things started to go really bad. Stay tuned for part 2.
Story time on how I got nasty with my older sister's boyfriend while she was sleeping. Okay, so boom, let's jump right into it. So I have an older sister who's 18 and I'm 16. Her boyfriend, George, let's call him George because that's his name. Well, George is 20. He is very attractive. I'm talking fine. Every time he comes over, we flirt with our eyes and whenever my sister leaves the room. And my relationship with my sister isn't bad at all. She's older than me, so she brings me places, gets me food, and helps me out with homework. You know, normal sister duties. So I don't have anything against her, but her man is just so fine. I just really don't care about my sister's feelings whatsoever, like at all. So after our flirting became constant between us, things got real. My sister and her boyfriend were spending the night together, but George, the boyfriend, waited for my sister to fall asleep. And when she fell asleep, things got real. Like for part 2. Part 2 on how I got nasty with my older sister's boyfriend while she was sleeping. Okay, so boom, like I said, George, the boyfriend, waited for my sister to fall asleep. And once she fell asleep, he came over to my room and yeah, we did the nasty. Like literally with my sister in the room next door, we literally slept together. When we were done, he went back to my sister's room and she never found out. 2 months later, they broke up because he cheated with someone else, and we never seen him again. And 6 years later, my sister still doesn't know what I did. Should I tell her? Story time on how I got nasty with my married uncle. Okay, so boom, let's jump right into it. So my uncle is 38 and recently got married to a woman he doesn't love. They did it for money, so he cheats on her every chance he gets. One day, he told me I look pretty. I see him staring at me when we got to the pool and the beach. But it doesn't look like he was going to make a move, so I took matters into my own hand. I went to my uncle and asked him to help me look for something. And when we were out of public eye, I gave him a hand job. He later came and asked if we can meet again. I said whenever, and then I left. Fast forward to a week, we were already getting nasty in his bedroom. I'm writing this anonymously, not to brag, but just because I want to get it off my chest. I love getting nasty and doing it with my uncle and don't plan on stopping anytime soon. Oh, by the way, I'm 17. Story time on how dating a white boy landed me in jail. Okay, so boom, let's get right into it. So I'm a black woman and I'm 23 years old. My Caucasian boyfriend is 25 years old and we've been together for about 5 months. So this next information might seem mean, but it's necessary to understand this story. My Caucasian boyfriend was absolutely broke, jobless, carless, and living with his parents. But of course, he lied to me about all of that, and I didn't find out until he started staying at my apartment every single day. I would ask him, "Where's your car?" And he would say, "I got into an accident and it's in the shop." I would ask, "How come you're here and not working?" And he would say he works from home. I would even ask, "How come you're never at your place and we always hang out at my place?" He said my place is just more homey and clean because I'm a girl. Okay, so this is how the police gets involved. I came home from work and he was on the couch playing games doing nothing. And the first thing he says to me is, "I'm hungry, there's no food." Y'all know where this is going. Like for part 2. Part 2 on how dating a white boy landed me in jail. Okay, so boom, like I said, we established that my Caucasian boyfriend was absolutely broke, jobless, carless, and living with his parents. I came home from work and he was on a couch playing games doing nothing. And the first thing he says to me is, "I'm hungry, there's no food." Not a, "Hey baby, how was work baby, how was your day?" Nope, just "I'm hungry and there's no food." I get annoyed because I've been dealing with this for 3 months, so I tell him, "Go get some food or go make some food yourself." Then he said, "You keep talking like that and you gonna end up single." At this point, there was no holding back. I exploded. I yelled at him saying, "You literally lied about who you are. You don't work, you have no money, no car, and you tried to forcefully move yourself into my place without my permission. You're lucky you're not single. Matter of fact, you're single now, pack your stuff and get out." He gets mad and starts breaking everything. Like for part 3. Part 3 on how dating a white boy landed me in jail. Okay, so boom, like I said, I break up with my Caucasian boyfriend and he is not having it. He starts breaking everything. And he starts calling me all types of names that's mad disrespectful. He won't stop and I get scared, so I call the cops. I have a degree and a good paying job, so I live in a suburban area. That's how I met him in the first place. So in my area, the cops come in less than 5 minutes. When I opened the door for the cops, he was still breaking things and screaming at me. But the cops immediately handcuffed me and separated me from my my ex. Then they asked me why am I disturbing the peace at his home. Yeah, they assumed that this was his place and not mine. I was just a mad, crazy girlfriend. Surely a woman of color can't afford this place. I tried to explain that it was him who was invading and trashing my place, but they put me in jail for a day. Until the next day where they figured out that he was actually the problem in my home. Like for part 4. Part 4 on how dating a white boy landed me in jail. Okay, so boom, like I said, I spent a day in jail until they realized that he was the problem and that was my place. They took me back home and escorted him out of my place. Yeah, he literally stayed there. Mind you, they never handcuffed him, they only talked to him. They finally took him out my place, something they should have done the first time. And I never talked to my ex again no matter how hard he's been trying. Wish me luck on my case because I'm coming for that department. Story time on how I caught my pastor trying to sleep with his dog. Okay, so boom, let's jump right into it. So my family is very religious and we go to church every single Sunday. We also go to church every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. As you can imagine, since we're there 24/7, my parents have a great relationship with our pastor. He invites us over all the time and my mom even cooks for him since he has no wife and kids, but he has a dog. Well, one day my mom cooked for him and told me to go drop it off to surprise him with his favorite dish. I casually go over there as I've done many times before and I knock on the door, but he didn't answer. I see his car out front, so I know he's here, so I tried going to the back of the house. He has a window in his room where he would be able to see me. I went to the back of the house so I can get his attention to open the door and give him the food. When I looked into that window, my soul left. Like for part 2. Part 2 on how I caught my pastor trying to sleep with his dog. Okay, so boom, like I said, I go to the back of his house where I know I could get his attention. A window in the back that shows right into his room. I maybe overstepped my boundaries by going to the back of his house, but I was excited to give him this food that my mom cooked for him because again, this was his favorite dish. Well, when I got to his window and started knocking on it, my pastor was completely naked. But oh no, not just that. His dog was on the bed and he was actively trying to put his hot dog in the bun. I just couldn't believe it and I ran back home. I didn't even want him to know that I seen that. I just told my mom he wasn't home and she should just drop it off later and I just ran to my room. Now he gives me nothing but the creeps, but I haven't told anyone. Should I say something or should I turn a blind eye? Story time on how I caught my 76-year-old grandpa sleeping with my 14-year-old daughter. Okay, so boom, let's jump right into it. So one day my grandpa came over to see my family. My husband was at work, so it was only me and my daughter. My daughter is 14, my grandpa is 76, and I'm 39. After my grandpa visited, the next day he came back to take my daughter out to eat. They left at 5 p.m. and came back at 12 a.m. And when they came back home, my daughter wanted my grandpa to go in the room with her. So he went upstairs with her, and naturally I found that very suspicious. Cause I mean, like, that's weird. My grandpa slept over that night, and the next day I asked them if they wanted to come visit my best friend with me. Both my grandpa and my daughter said no, but while they were in the kitchen, I put a camera in her room and in the living room. I left, and not even 10 minutes went by, and I saw everything. Like and follow for part 2 on how I caught my 76-year-old grandpa sleeping with my 14-year-old daughter. Okay, so boom, like I said, I got suspicious and I put a camera in my daughter's room and in my living room. I left, and in less than 10 minutes, I look at the cameras and I saw everything. I quickly drove back home, and I mean, I was speeding, child. While I was driving back, I screenshotted the camera of my grandpa on top of my daughter while they were both naked. I busted down my house door and I heard moaning. I ran into the room and I kicked my grandpa in the nuts. And I beat my daughter ass. I called her dad, who came less than 5 minutes after me. While my husband handled my grandpa, I sat with my daughter and she told me that he was taking advantage of her, that he forced himself on her. She's now in therapy and he's in jail. Watch out for pervy. Story time on how I told my mom her boyfriend was sexually assaulting me and she didn't believe me. Okay, so boom, let's jump right into it. So I was 14 at the time and my mom had a longtime boyfriend. My mom and this guy been together for about 3 years. Unfortunately, my dad is in jail, so I only talk to him over the phone when he calls. I always got creepy vibes from my mom boyfriend and I told her about this. I told her how he would put his hands a little bit too close to my booty, and when he would hug me, I can like feel his down there area. And when he would kiss me on the cheeks. Every now and then, he would always do a mistake and kiss me on my lips. She didn't believe me because she never seen anything. Well, one day, he took it extremely too far. My mom was at work and I was alone with her boyfriend. I always stay in my room away from him because, again, he's creepy. But this night, it didn't stop him from coming into my room and violating me. Like for part 2. Part 2 on how I told my mom her boyfriend was sexually assaulting me and she didn't believe me. Okay, so boom, like I said, her boyfriend came into my room and violated me. I tried to run away, but he pinned me on the bed and he started kissing me on my neck. Then he snatched my shirt off and my breast was exposed. At that moment, my phone started ringing. The ring distracted my mom's boyfriend, and at that moment, I took my phone and I ran out the house. Yes, I ran out the house with my breast exposed. By the grace of God, it was my dad calling from jail. I missed his call, so I had to wait till he called me back. So in the meantime, I called my mom. I told my mom everything and she told me shut up. She hung up the phone and did nothing. She even called me a liar. I ran to my best friend's house with my breast exposed and her parents took me in. Eventually, my dad called me back and he saved my life. Like for part 3. Part 3 on how I told my mom her boyfriend was sexually assaulting me and she didn't believe me. Okay, so boom, like I said, after my mom didn't believe me, I ran to my best friend's house with my breast exposed and her parents took me in. I waited for my dad to call me back from jail and he eventually did. I answered the phone and I cried telling him everything of what just happened. My dad from jail became my hero. He sent a lot of his friends to my mom's house to handle that guy. Of course, we pressed charges and he's going to be serving time in jail. All my dad's friends helped me pack and they all brought me to my dad's mom's house. My mom came home to an empty house and my dad's mother has been granted custody of me. My mom was horrible. I hated living with her. Her boyfriend was physically abusive while she was verbally abusive. She didn't believe me and that hurt, but my dad believed me and saved my life. Can't wait to see him in a year. Story time on how the guy I was dating lied about his age to get with me. Okay, y'all, so today's story is my own. Okay, so boom, this took place on my senior year of high school when I was 17. In my school, everyone had to complete 100 hours of community service to graduate. I ended up doing community service at a daycare that was literally right next to my house. I was working with a lot of kids and they literally all loved me. I got many crazy stories about the time I was working at this daycare, y'all, sheesh. But anyways, there was this one particular kid who was real quiet but super sweet. The teacher asked me to give him some one-on-one attention because he was a little behind. Everything went great and I could see he had potential, so my teacher wanted to introduce me to his parents. He told me his mom usually picks him up, so I was like, yeah, okay, cool. Well, a guy ended up picking him up and he looked kind of young, like my age, and he was 6'2", and ooh, height, y'all, that's my weakness. And of course, very handsome. As soon as he looked at me, he gave me a, ooh, you a snack look. I was so nervous, y'all. Like for part 2. Part 2 on how the guy I was dating lied about his age to get with me. Okay, so boom, like I said, I seen a tall, handsome guy walk up and I got a little nervous. But whatever, I started talking to him about his son and he just smiled the whole time and gave me the look. This how he was looking at me, y'all. Like, please, if you're not ready for no action, don't give me that look. So I told him, your son is amazing and he's so sweet. And do you know what this guy told me? He told me, oh, I'm not his dad, I'm big bro. And I believed him. From that day forward, he was always coming to pick up his little brother and we would always like flirt and stuff. Well, one day I was in the playground playing with the kids, waiting for all the parents to come pick up their children. I was sitting on a swing just like reading a book and he came and sat next to me. This was the first time we were both kind of alone, like literally no teachers around because I was the only one watching the kids play. And this is the moment he asked me for my number. Y'all, we started talking and texting every night. This is when things got spicy, like for part 3. Part 3 on how the guy I was dating lied about his age to get with me. Okay, so boom, like I said, this was the first time we were finally alone and this is when he asked me for my number. He knew what he was doing. He was playing his cards right, y'all, when I think about it. But anyways, from then on, we started texting and talking every night. This went on for like a good 2 weeks, y'all. I'm talking about I was sleeping on the phone with this man, still thinking that that was his little brother. He asked me how old I was, and I told him that I was 17, and then I asked him how old he was. This man told me he was 20, and then he told me that he already knew I was 17 because he asked one of the teachers already, but he wanted to make sure. So y'all, he literally knew the whole time that I was 17. Anyways, the truth was about to set his ass free. He asked me out on a date, and I was like, hell yeah. So we planned a date for next Saturday. Well, Wednesday, a couple days before our date, I literally found out everything. Like for part 4. Part 4 on how the guy I was dating lied about his age to get with me. And this story is my own. Okay, so boom, like I said, we had a date planned for Saturday, but Wednesday, the truth was revealed. The teacher was like, damn, Leo's mom hasn't been here in a while. He used to always pick him up, but now I'm always seeing the dad pick him up. I wonder what's going on. And I was like, huh, dad, what, huh? I said, that's not Leo's dad, that's his brother. And then she looked at me confused and was like, no, that's his father. And I just stared at her like, what? And I said, how old is he? She was like, 32. Y'all, my jaws dropped. He was actually single though. They were co-parenting, but he started picking up his son more literally because of me. I had the audacity to call him his little brother. From that day, I blocked him on everything and started hiding from him every time he came. So he thought I didn't work there anymore. He even asked about me. All the teachers had my back. Then eventually he stopped coming and the mom started picking up Leo. Thank God I didn't do nothing with him. These guys are weird. Story time on how my dad found out I had an OnlyFans and was using it to batter his dough. Okay, so boom. I was 18 at the time I started doing my OnlyFans. My OnlyFans was doing good, so I was able to move out and get my own spot. My dad was single and he lived alone, so I always came over to visit him every now and then. I never told my dad I did OnlyFans, and when he would ask me what my job was, I would just say I work from home, doing like customer service. Well, I was servicing the customers, all right. And little did I know he was one of them. Well, one day I went to go visit my dad and he was in his room watching some TV. He told me his computer wasn't working and if I could take a look at it and fix it for him. You know, typical things that parents usually ask their kids for. So I go over to the computer to take a look at it and see what's going on. Child, little did I know once I fixed that computer, I was going to be in for a rude awakening. Like for part 2. Part 2 on how my dad found out I had an OnlyFans and was using it to batter his dough. So like I said, I went to go visit my dad and he asked me to take a look at the computer because it wasn't working. Now, when I went over to the computer, once I took a look at everything, I found out what the issue was pretty quickly. The Ethernet cable wasn't plugged all the way in, so the internet wasn't working. I plugged it back in and everything was fine. Once I refreshed everything, I know that Google restore option. Yeah, that popped up and I was like, let me restore everything for him, thinking that he was going to be happy that everything was still saved. Well, once I restored everything, 6 tabs opened up and OnlyFans was one of them. I was shocked that he even had an OnlyFans account. So I clicked on the tab and I signed in. I know. Y'all probably like, why? But I mean, I was nosy. Y'all telling me y'all wouldn't be either. He was signed into his account, so I started looking through it. All of a sudden, my heart dropped. There was my OnlyFans and he had exclusive content. Like for part 3. Part 3 on how my dad found out I had an OnlyFans and was using it to batter his dough. So like I said, he was signed into his OnlyFans, so I started looking through it. And I found out that he was subscribed to me for a whole year. He had the year subscription. Do you hear me? He was one of the customers that were getting exclusive content. He was seeing everything. And I know y'all must be asking, why would he watch his daughter to, batter his dough? Well, he kind of doesn't know it's me. So my OnlyFans is anonymous, like this story. I wear a bejeweled ski mask in all my pictures and videos, and my name is obviously fake. My dad is watching me, and I mean all of me, but he doesn't know it's me. So I closed it and told him everything was fixed, but I had to go home. Told him that I forgot to meet up with a friend. So he said, okay, thanks, drive safe, sweetie. I cringed. Went home, had a nervous breakdown, and learned how to block him. And now I have to live the rest of my life knowing my dad used my content for battering. Story time on how I went on a Tinder date and my date tried to kill me. This story gets straight to the point, so let's get into it. Okay, so boom. I was 16 years old and I was lonely. All my friends had boyfriends, so I was always left out. But I didn't like anyone from school, so I went crazy on Tinder. Me and this guy both swiped, so we started talking. And after 2 weeks, he asked to meet up and go on a date. 2 weeks was a little fast, but again, I was lonely and I really wanted a stupid boyfriend. Don't be like me, y'all. So yeah, yeah, I went on the date and we met at a restaurant. And you guessed it, he was catfish. In his picture, he was a tall, muscular guy, 6'3", with Rico Suave hair. But in person, he was bald, fat, and he was short. I was so pissed, I just wanted to turn around and leave, but he stood up to greet me, so I didn't want to be rude, so I just told myself I'll get a free meal. Y'all, during the day, I found out he was 40. Like for part 2. Part 2 on how I went on a Tinder date and my date tried to kill me. Okay, so boom, like I said, I found out he was 40 and he was catfished. I had to get out of there. After dinner, I told him it was nice meeting him and that I was gonna text him once I got home. But of course, I was just gonna block him. But that's none of his business. Anyways, he asked me if I wanted him to walk me to my car. But I said, no, that's fine. At this point, I was being very standoffish because it was like, dude, get away from me. And I think he noticed. It was pretty late at night, probably like 10 p.m. So when we left the restaurant, no one was really around. At this point, I'm kind of getting a little scared, so I kind of walked to my car a little quickly, about to open my door. And this guy comes out of nowhere right behind me and covers me with his arms and squeezes me. He covers my mouth so I wouldn't scream, and he whispered in my ear saying I was leaving with him whether I liked it or not. I tried to wiggle myself out, but I couldn't. He was too strong. And things got real. Like for part 3. Part 3 on how I went on a Tinder date and my date tried to kill me. Okay, so boom, like I said, he comes up behind me and squeezes me with his arms and covers my mouth so I wouldn't scream. I tried to wiggle my way out, but I couldn't. He was too strong. But since his arms was around my upper body and my mouth, my hand where I was holding the keys was free, but my other arm was being squeezed by him. Thank God, all I needed was that one arm. And thank God I had pepper spray attached to my keys. So I took my pepper spray, sprayed him in his eyes, and he screamed. He let me go, and that's when I took my purse to reach for my taser. And yes, I tased him. Mama ain't raised no fool. I ran to my car, opened the door, and got home immediately. By the time I pulled out the parking lot, he was still on the floor. I got home and told my parents everything. They called the cops to the restaurant. He was gone by the time they got there. I just thank God he didn't know anything about me. Not my home, not my school, or personal life. All he knew was my first name. So if you're dating online, be careful.
I'm going to be telling you the scary story of the house I lived in elementary and middle school. It was a 3-bedroom house, 1 bedroom in the basement, and 2 bedrooms upstairs. Because I was the oldest, I got put in the bedroom in the basement. Right when we moved in, I already had creepy feelings about the house. I hated being downstairs by myself. One day I dropped a $20 bill behind my dresser. I decided to move my dresser all by myself, and behind the dresser was this door. It wasn't a normal door, it was really short and just squared. It was also glued off, so I couldn't get into it. Me and my neighbor, who were best friends, worked at it for days to get into it. We finally got it open, and inside was another room. It was almost like an underground attic. The walls were wooden, the ceiling was wooden, there was no carpet, but it smelled awful. My parents found out and they were super mad at me for opening the room. They of course put that dresser in front of that door for a reason because they knew I would explore it. But after that, things started to get weird. Stay tuned for part 2. This is part 2 of my scary childhood story about the door behind my dresser. Of course, my parents were really mad at us for opening it up, so they sealed it back up. They just didn't want us to get hurt from all the rusty nails or if there was mold inside. But I think we released something when we opened that door and a lot of things started to happen. First, I started having night terrors to the point where I would scream at the top of my lungs and not wake up. My parents would have to come downstairs and wake me up and put me back to bed. Then, every single night I would have this reoccurring dream that me, my mom, and my brother were all at a picnic at the beach. This super old lady would walk up to us and she would take me. She then would lock me up in the room behind my dresser. This dream would reoccur every single night for months. It scared me so much that I started to not sleep at night. I developed insomnia and would only sleep for 2 to 3 hours per night at only 8 years old. couple nights where I swear I saw the old lady standing in the corner of my room. My parents just thought I was hallucinating from no sleep, though. Stay tuned for part 3.
Am I the asshole for being pissed off at my girlfriend for licking all the Oreos? This is so stupid. We mostly get along great, but this one issue is driving me fucking crazy. Yesterday, I went to get myself a couple of Oreos and I noticed that they looked like they were taken apart and put back together. The cream was smeared / gone from a couple. My girlfriend confirmed that she licked every single one of them and put them back in the box. She kept saying, "Eat your chocolate chips." But that's not the point. It's not hygienic having licked food just laying around the house like that. It's just gross. Today, she's doubling down. When the groceries came, she opened the chips in front of me, licked one of them all over, like just slobbered all over it, then put it back in the bag and shook it up. Now I can't eat any of them because I don't know which ones have spit on them. Girlfriend says I'm the asshole for not letting this go, but I can't. It's so gross.
Time for a bit of a gruesome story time. This is not my story, it was sent to me on Instagram. So I used to work at the emergency department of a hospital where somebody came in with a swollen eyelid. She said that she had already visited her GP about this and was put on antibiotics and inflammatory medicine. After taking the medication for 2 days, she decided to come into the hospital as she felt she was getting nowhere and her eyelid was getting visibly more swollen. It was initially thought to just be like an infection under the eye, but the eyelid was literally bulging out and she said that she could feel it twitching. At this point, the eyelid was looking extremely painful, so it was decided to do surgery on the eyelid. After flipping the eyelid inside out, apart from all the stuff you'd usually expect, like pus and all of that kind of disgusting stuff, there did seem to be a pocket right in the centre of the eyelid. Long story short, the doctors found that a spider had somehow managed to go inside her eyelid while she was asleep, and the tissue had swollen around it, creating a pocket. Yes, the spider was dead, but the twitching could have been from it moving.